The fluorescent lights on the 47th floor buzzed like dying insects at 2:13 a.m. Stella Murphy pushed her cleaning cart past rows of identical cubicles, headphones blocking out the hum with a podcast she wasn't really listening to. Her reflection caught in the dark windows overlooking the city. Auburn hair escaping its ponytail, dark circles under green eyes, the same second-hand jacket she'd worn for 8 months. She scrubbed at a coffee stain someone had left near the water cooler. The motion was automatic now, muscle memory from 4 months of night shifts. Her mind was elsewhere, calculating numbers that never added up no matter how many times she rearranged them. $847 due in 3 days. The electric company had already sent 2 warnings. Her landlord had stopped being understanding after month 6. She could pay the electricity and eat ramen for 2 weeks, or pay rent and sit in the dark. Neither option solved the medical bills still arriving from Daniel's final hospital stay, 2 years and 4 months after they'd buried him. Stella's hand went to her wedding ring without thinking. She still wore it, couldn't bring herself to take it off, even though the weight of it sometimes felt like it might drag her under. The elevator dinged behind her. She glanced at her watch. Nearly 2:30. The building should be empty except for security downstairs and maybe a few obsessive lawyers burning midnight oil on the lower floors. She returned to scrubbing, her supervisor Rita's warnings echoing in her head from her first week. You clean floors 40 through 49. That's it. The 50th floor is private offices, off limits. You don't go up there, you don't ask questions about it, you act like it doesn't exist. Understand? Stella had understood. She needed this job too much to get curious about things that weren't her business. 3 jobs kept her barely afloat. The night cleaning shift, from 11 to 7. Morning shift at Morrison's Diner from 8 to 2. Evening shift at Fletcher's grocery store from 4 to 9. She slept in scattered chunks, 3 hours here, 2 hours there, and her body had stopped knowing what real rest felt like. She finished the 47th floor at 2:52 a.m. Loaded her cart onto the service elevator and pressed the button for 48. The elevator lurched upward with a grinding sound that made her wince. The building was old despite its fancy address, and things broke down constantly. The numbers climbed, 48, 49. Then the elevator shuddered and the lights flickered. Stella grabbed the cart to steady herself. A number display glitched, jumping from 49 to 50. And the doors opened with a cheerful ding that felt wrong given the malfunction. Stella stared at the hallway beyond, where the floors below had been standard office building, industrial carpet and fluorescent lights and motivational posters. This was different. Marble floors, dim lighting from fixtures that probably cost more than her car had before it died. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapping around what must be the entire top floor. The city spread out like scattered diamonds below. She should press the button, go back down. This was exactly what Rita had warned her about. Then she heard it, a child crying. The sound was muffled, coming from behind a door down the hallway, but unmistakable. A desperate, breathless quality that Stella recognized from somewhere deep in her memory. She'd made sounds like that herself in the months after Daniel died. Panic attacks that came without warning and left her gasping on her bathroom floor. Stella stepped out of the elevator. Her sneakers squeaked on the marble. The crying got louder as she approached a door at the end of the hall, light spilling from beneath it. Every logical part of her brain screamed that this was a mistake, that she should leave, that whatever was happening here wasn't her concern. She pushed the door open anyway. The office beyond looked like something from a magazine. Massive desk with a view that must cost millions. Leather furniture. Bookshelves filled with what looked like actual rare books, not decoration. And in the corner, curled up small despite all that space, a little girl having a panic attack. The girl looked up when the door opened. Dark curly hair stuck to tear-streaked cheeks. Brown eyes wide with fear. She couldn't have been more than 7. Wearing princess pajamas that seemed wrong in this corporate space. She reached out one small hand toward Stella, without making a sound beyond those desperate, gasping breaths. Stella crossed the room without thinking. She knelt in front of the girl, hands raised to show she wasn't a threat. Hey, sweetie, hey, it's okay. You're okay. Can you look at me? The girl's chest was heaving, hyperventilating, lips starting to turn blue at the edges. Stella had seen this before in her own mirror. She knew what came next if someone didn't intervene. I need you to breathe with me, okay? Can you do that? Stella took an exaggerated breath in, counting softly. In for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now out. 1, 2, 3, 4. The girl tried to follow, failing at first, but Stella kept going, kept counting, kept breathing in that deliberate, grounding way. After what felt like hours but was probably only 2 minutes, the girl's breathing started to slow. She was still crying, but the panic was receding. That's it. You're doing so good. Keep breathing. I've got you. The girl lunged forward suddenly, wrapping small arms around Stella's neck and clinging like she was drowning. Stella caught her automatically, holding her close, one hand rubbing circles on her back, the way her own mother had done when she was small. Behind her, the elevator dinged. Stella's entire body went cold. She'd been so focused on the child that I'd forgotten where she was, that she wasn't supposed to be here, that she was probably about to lose the job she desperately needed. She turned slowly, still holding the girl who refused to let go. A man stepped out of what must have been a private elevator she hadn't noticed. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Stella made in 6 months. Dark hair with gray at the temples. Sharp features that might have been handsome if they weren't arranged in an expression of absolute shock. He stared at Stella like he'd seen a ghost. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. Juliana. Stella had no idea who that was, or why this man was looking at her like she'd risen from the dead. She opened her mouth to explain, to apologize, to beg to keep her job. A second man appeared behind the first. Bald, built like he spent his life in a gym, wearing dark clothing that didn't quite hide the gun holster under his jacket. His hand moved toward that weapon. The first man held up one hand, stopping him. He moved closer, each step careful, like Stella might vanish if he moved too quickly. The shock on his face was transforming into something else. Grief, disbelief, something desperate and painful that Stella didn't understand. How was this possible? He was close enough now that Stella could see his eyes were brown, red-rimmed like he hadn't slept in days. His gaze traveled over her face like he was memorizing every detail. You look exactly like her. Stella tightened her hold on the little girl who was still clinging to her, trembling. I don't know what you're talking about. The elevator malfunctioned and brought me up here. I heard her crying and I just wanted to help. The man took another step closer. Up close, Stella could see a thin scar running from his left ear to his chin, a flaw in otherwise sharp features. He studied her face with an intensity that made her want to look away, but she forced herself to hold his gaze. Who sent you? His voice had changed, gone cold and flat, dangerous. What family are you working for? Family? I work for Titan Cleaning Services. I'm nobody. Stella shifted the child in her arms, trying to put more distance between herself and this man. Look, I'm sorry I came up here. I know this floor is off limits. The elevator broke and I heard crying and I didn't think. I just reacted. I'll go. I won't say anything to anyone. The bald man spoke for the first time, his voice rough. Boss, I'll handle this. No. The first man held up his hand again without taking his eyes off Stella. He turned his head slightly. Marco, check her out. I want to know everything. Marco pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. The little girl made a small sound against Stella's shoulder, and Stella automatically started rubbing her back again, murmuring soft reassurances. She had no idea what was happening, but every instinct screamed that she was in serious danger. The man noticed the gesture. Something flickered across his face, too fast for Stella to identify. He moved to the massive desk and picked up a silver frame, staring at it for a long moment before turning it toward Stella. The woman in the photograph could have been Stella's twin. Same auburn hair, same green eyes, same scattering of freckles across the bridge of her nose. The woman was holding a newborn baby wrapped in pink, smiling at the camera with pure joy. The resemblance was so uncanny that Stella felt a chill run down her spine. That's Juliana, the man said quietly. My wife. She died 5 years ago, giving birth to our daughter. Stella looked down at the little girl in her arms. Understanding clicking into place. I'm sorry for your loss. I didn't know. I just look like her, that's all. It's just coincidence. There are no coincidences in my world. He set the frame down carefully. Marco. Marco looked up from his phone. She's clean, boss. Stella Murphy, 28, widow, works 3 jobs, lives in a studio in Parkside. No criminal record, no connections to any families we know. She's been on the cleaning crew here for 4 months. Background check from when she was hired shows nothing unusual. A widow. The man's eyes returned to Stella with renewed interest. How long? 2 years, 4 months, 13 days. The numbers came automatically. Stella had stopped counting at some point, but her brain had kept the tally anyway. Something in his expression shifted, softened just slightly. Recognition of shared pain. He nodded once, then seemed to remember where he was. His attention moved to his daughter, who hadn't loosened her grip on Stella at all. Lucia. His voice gentled in a way that transformed his entire face. Lucia, Piccola, you need to let go now. The little girl, Lucia, pressed her face harder against Stella's shoulder. Her small hands fisted in Stella's jacket. She didn't make a sound, but the message was clear. She wasn't letting go. The man, who Stella was beginning to suspect was far more dangerous than a simple businessman, ran a hand through his hair. The gesture made him look suddenly exhausted. She hasn't let anyone touch her in 5 years. Not her nannies, not the therapists I've paid a fortune for, not my sister, not even me most days. She barely tolerates Marco. Marco grunted in agreement. Kid's got walls like a fortress, boss. But she ran to you. The man stared at Stella like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. A complete stranger, and she ran to you. Stella looked down at Lucia, whose breathing had finally returned to normal. The little girl was exhausted, face flushed from crying, but her grip hadn't weakened. She was having a panic attack. I've had them. I know what they feel like. I just did what I wish someone had done for me. What's your name? The question was direct, commanding. Stella. Stella Murphy. Stella. He tested the name, his accent making it sound different. Italian, she realized. I'm Vittorio Moretti. This is Marco Costa, and you've already met my daughter. Moretti. The name tickled something in Stella's memory, but she couldn't place it. She shifted Lucia's weight, her arms starting to ache. Mr. Moretti, I really should go. I need to finish my shift and I've already caused enough trouble. No. The word was absolute. Marco, fix the elevator. Make sure her access card works for this floor. And Miss Murphy, you'll come back tomorrow night, same time. Stella blinked. I don't understand. Vittorio moved closer, careful not to startle Lucia. He reached out slowly and touched his daughter's curly hair with a tenderness that didn't match the dangerous energy radiating from him. Lucia didn't pull away, but she didn't acknowledge him either. My daughter hasn't slept through the night since her mother died. Every night, the nightmares come. Every night, she wakes up screaming and there's nothing I can do to calm her down. His voice was rough with emotion. But you walked in here, a complete stranger, and she let you hold her. She's breathing normally for the first time tonight. Whatever you did, whatever this is, she needs it. I just helped her breathe. That's not special. Anyone could have done it. But they didn't. Vittorio's dark eyes met hers. I've tried everything. Doctors, medication, therapy, specialists from 3 different countries. Nothing works. She's drowning and I can't reach her. Stella felt Lucia's small body go heavy against her. The little girl had fallen asleep, exhausted from the panic attack and subsequent crying. Her breathing was deep and even. One small hand still fisted in Stella's jacket. Marco whistled softly. Boss, she's out. When's the last time that happened without medication? Vittorio stared at his sleeping daughter with an expression of such profound longing that Stella had to look away. It was too intimate, too raw. She understood that look. She'd worn it herself every time she'd visited Daniel's grave. 2 years, Vittorio said quietly. 2 years since she's fallen asleep in someone's arms. He looked back at Stella, and she saw the exact moment he made his decision. It was there, in the set of his shoulders, the calculation in his eyes. This was a man used to getting what he wanted, and right now he wanted her here. This isn't a request, Miss Murphy. You'll come back tomorrow night at the same time. You'll help my daughter sleep. That's all I'm asking. And if I say no, you won't. It wasn't a threat, just a statement of fact. Because you already care about her. I saw it in your face when you were calming her down. You can't walk away from a child in pain any more than I can. He was right, and they both knew it. Stella looked down at Lucia's peaceful face, felt the weight of her trust, and knew she was already caught. Stella sat in the public library at 9 in the morning, her laptop open to a search page, fingers hovering over the keyboard. She'd managed 3 hours of sleep after leaving Moretti Tower, her mind too wired to rest. The image of Lucia's tear-streaked face kept replaying in her head, along with Vittorio Moretti's intense stare. She typed his name into the search bar. The results loaded and her stomach dropped. The first page was filled with news articles. Alleged crime boss Vittorio Moretti, acquitted again. Federal investigation into Moretti family finds no evidence. District attorney frustrated as Moretti walks free. Each headline painted a picture she'd been trying to avoid seeing. Stella clicked on an article from 3 years ago. It detailed a racketeering case that had fallen apart when witnesses recanted testimony. Another article mentioned connections to union manipulation, illegal gambling operations, and suspected involvement in 2 unsolved murders. Nothing proven, nothing stuck, but the implications were clear. She found the article about Giuliana's death. It was from 5 years ago, featured in the society pages alongside the crime coverage. Giuliana Moretti, wife of businessman Vittorio Moretti, dies in childbirth. The photograph showed a younger Vittorio in a black suit, face carved from stone, carrying a small casket. Behind him, a line of mourners that stretched for blocks. Stella zoomed in on Giuliana's portrait. The resemblance was even more striking in different photos. Same face structure, same coloring, even similar mannerisms from what she could see in candid shots. It was like looking at herself in a parallel life, one where she'd married a dangerous man and died young. She should walk away. Every rational part of her brain screamed it. This wasn't just a complicated family situation. This was organized crime. This was danger that could swallow her whole and leave nothing behind. But when she closed her eyes, she saw Lucia reaching for her with desperate hands. Stella closed the laptop. She had 12 hours until she was supposed to return to Moretti Tower. 12 hours to decide if she was brave or stupid enough to go back. She went back. At 1:47 a.m., Stella stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the 50th floor. Her access card had been updated like Marco promised. The elevator rose smoothly. No malfunctions this time, and opened onto that marble hallway. Marco was waiting. He nodded once, professional and distant, then gestured for her to follow. "Boss is expecting you. This way." He led her past Vittorio's office to a different room. The door opened onto a library that had been converted into something between a bedroom and a sanctuary. Bookshelves lined the walls, but there was also a daybed with soft blankets, a window seat overlooking the city, and soft lighting that felt warm instead of institutional. Lucia sat on the window seat, knees pulled to her chest, staring out at the glittering city. Below, she was wearing different pajamas tonight, purple with stars. When she heard the door open, she turned her head. Her entire face transformed when she saw Stella. Not quite a smile, but something close. Hope, maybe, relief. She scrambled off the window seat and ran across the room, stopping just short of Stella, like she was asking permission. Stella knelt down to her level. "Hi, sweetheart. I came back, just like your papa said I would." Lucia launched herself forward, hugging Stella with the same desperate intensity as the night before. Stella caught her easily, holding her close. Over Lucia's head, she saw Vittorio standing in the doorway, watching them with that same unreadable expression. "She's been sitting there for an hour," he said quietly, "waiting for you." Lucia pulled back enough to grab Stella's hand. She tugged her toward the bookshelves, pointing at a specific book. A worn copy of a fairy tale collection. The kind with beautiful illustrations. "You want me to read to you?" Stella asked. Lucia nodded vigorously. She climbed onto the daybed, patting the space beside her in clear invitation. Stella sat, and Lucia immediately curled against her side, fitting herself into the space like she belonged there. Stella glanced at Vittorio. He was still in the doorway, Marco a shadow behind him. "You can stay if you want. I'm just going to read until she falls asleep." Something flickered across Vittorio's face, surprise maybe, like he hadn't expected to be included. He moved into the room slowly, choosing a chair near the window. Far enough away not to intrude, close enough to watch. Stella opened the book and began to read. 20 minutes later, Lucia's breathing had evened out into sleep. Stella carefully extracted herself, weighing the little girl down and pulling a blanket over her. Lucia's hand shot out in her sleep, grasping at nothing. And Stella automatically took it. Lucia settled immediately. Vittorio stood. "Come to my office. We need to talk." Stella hesitated, looking down at Lucia's small hand in hers. She's holding on. Marco will sit with her. She knows him. She'll be fine. Vittorio's voice left no room for argument. Marco took Stella's place on the edge of the bed. Lucia stirred, but didn't wake. Stella followed Vittorio down the hall to his office. Her heart pounding. This was the conversation she'd been dreading. The one where he laid out exactly what he wanted and what it would cost her. Vittorio closed the door behind them and moved to the bar in the corner. He poured 2 glasses of amber liquid without asking, handing one to Stella. She took it but didn't drink. "I had you investigated," he said bluntly. "After you left last night, I had people pull every piece of information about you that exists. Your credit score, your work history, your late husband's accident report, your medical records, everything." Stella's fingers tightened on the glass. The invasion should have made her angry, but she was too tired for righteous indignation. "And what did you find?" "That you're exactly what you appear to be. A widow struggling to survive, drowning in debt you can't pay, working yourself to death in jobs that barely cover your expenses." He studied her over the rim of his glass. "No criminal connections. No suspicious associates, no red flags, you're clean. Is that supposed to make me feel better? That I'll pass some test I didn't know I was taking? It's supposed to make you understand that I know exactly who you are and what you need." Vittorio set his glass down and leaned against his desk. "I'm going to make you an offer, Miss Murphy. $5,000 per week to come here 6 nights. Help Lucia sleep. Nothing more." Stella nearly dropped her glass. $5,000. That was more than she made in 2 months across all 3 jobs combined. That was enough to pay off her electric bill, her rent, start making real dents in the medical debt. That was enough to breathe for the first time in 2 years. "Why?" Her voice came out hoarse. "That's too much money just to read bedtime stories." "Because my daughter hasn't spoken a word since her mother died." Vittorio's voice cracked slightly. "Because she has nightmares every single night that leave her screaming. Because every therapist I've hired has failed. Because I'm watching her disappear into herself and I can't stop it." He moved closer, and Stella saw the exhaustion etched into his face. The grief he carried like a physical weight. "You have Juliana's face, but you're alive. Maybe that's enough to bring Lucia back. Maybe seeing someone who looks like her mother but isn't a ghost will help her heal." His eyes met Stella's. "I don't know if this will work, but I know that in 15 minutes last night, you did more for my daughter than anyone has done in 5 years. So yes, $5,000 a week is exactly what that's worth to me." The first week passed in a rhythm that felt both surreal and natural. Stella arrived at Moretti Tower each night at 1:45 a.m., took the elevator to the 50th floor, and spent 2 to 3 hours with Lucia, reading stories, sitting quietly while Lucia drew pictures, sometimes just holding her while she cried silently into Stella's shoulder. Lucia never spoke, but she communicated. A tug on Stella's sleeve meant she wanted attention. Pointing at books meant reading time. Holding out her drawings meant she wanted Stella to see them. Each night, Lucia fell asleep a little faster, held on a little less desperately. Vittorio was always there, watching from doorways or sitting in that chair by the window, never interfering but never leaving either. Sometimes Stella caught him staring at her with an expression she couldn't decipher. Grief mixed with something else. Hope, maybe, or fear. On Friday morning, Stella found an envelope in her mailbox, $5,000 in cash, just like Vittorio had. Dee promised. She stared at the bills for a full minute before her hands started shaking. She paid her electric bill that afternoon, paid her rent a week early, bought groceries that weren't ramen or day-old bread. The relief was so overwhelming, she cried in her apartment, sitting on the floor with bags of actual food around her. Friday night, Marco met her at the elevator with different instructions. Boss wants you at the estate tonight. Lucia's more comfortable there on weekends. Stella followed him to a black car idling at the curb. The drive took 40 minutes, leaving the city behind for sprawling properties hidden behind gates and walls. The Moretti estate appeared at the end of a long driveway. It looked like something from a movie. 3 stories of stone and windows, surrounded by manicured gardens, lit by subtle landscape lighting that made it look both beautiful and fortified. Security was everywhere. Guards at the gate, cameras on every corner, men in dark suits patrolling the grounds. Marco noticed her noticing. Boss takes Lucia's safety seriously. After what happened to her mother, he doesn't take chances. What did happen? Stella asked before she could stop herself. Marco's expression closed off. Not my story to tell. The inside of the mansion was even more impressive than the exterior. Marble floors, high ceilings, artwork that looked museum quality. But it felt empty despite all the luxury, like a mausoleum pretending to be a home. Marco led her upstairs to Lucia's bedroom. The door opened onto a space that made Stella's chest ache. It was enormous, filled with every toy a child could want. A bed fit for a princess, a reading nook with hundreds of books, a play area with a dollhouse taller than Stella. But it felt sterile, like Vittorio had tried to buy his daughter's happiness and created a beautiful prison instead. Lucia sat on her bed, small in all that space. When she saw Stella, her face lit up. She ran across the room and grabbed Stella's hand, pulling her toward the reading nook. Stella let herself be led, but her mind was working. This wasn't what Lucia needed. All these toys, all this space, all this luxury. It was compensation, not comfort. After Lucia fell asleep 2 hours later, Stella found Vittorio in his study. He looked up from paperwork when she knocked, surprise crossing his face. Is something wrong? Did Lucia wake up? No, she's sleeping. Marco's with her. Stella stepped inside, closing the door behind her. I need to talk to you about her bedroom. Vittorio's expression shifted to wariness. What about it? She doesn't need more toys. She doesn't need a bigger room or expensive things. Stella held his gaze. She needs you. The silence that followed was dangerous. Vittorio stood slowly, his full height suddenly intimidating. I provide everything she could possibly want. She doesn't want things. She wants her father. Stella refused to back down. When's the last time you read to her yourself? When's the last time you sat with her during a nightmare instead of paying someone else to do it? You don't know what you're talking about. His voice had gone cold. I know what it's like to lose someone. I know what it's like to be so paralyzed by grief that you can't function. But Lucia is 7 years old and she's drowning, and instead of reaching for her, you're throwing money at the problem. Vittorio moved around his desk, closing the distance between them. Marco appeared in the doorway, hand moving toward his weapon, but Vittorio waved him off. You think you understand my life, my situation? Vittorio's voice was quiet, which made it more threatening. You've been here 1 week. You know nothing about what I've tried, what I've lost, what it costs me to even look at her sometimes. Then tell me. Stella stood her ground. Because right now, I see a man who loves his daughter but is too afraid of his own pain to help her with hers. The words hung between them, sharp and true. Vittorio's jaw clenched. For a moment, Stella thought she'd pushed too far, that he'd tell her to leave and never come back. Instead, something in his expression cracked. Every time I look at her, I see what I lost. I see Juliana dying because I wanted another child. I see the moment they told me I had to choose, and I chose wrong. You didn't choose wrong. You chose your daughter. I chose Lucia, and she spent 5 years wishing I hadn't, wishing her mother was here instead of me. Vittorio ran a hand through his hair, the gesture making him look suddenly exhausted. I don't know how to help her. I don't know how to be what she needs. Stella took a breath. Then let me teach you. But you have to actually try. No more watching from doorways. No more keeping distance. She needs to know you're not going anywhere. Vittorio stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. What do you want me to do? Tonight, you read to her. I'll be there, but you're doing it. Tomorrow night, you sit with her when the nightmares come. You learn what calms her down, what makes her feel safe. You be her father, not her provider. And if I can't, if she won't let me, then we keep trying until she does. Stella softened her voice. She's your daughter, Mr. Moretti. She wants to love you. She's just scared you'll leave her too. That night, Vittorio sat stiffly on the edge of Lucia's bed while Stella settled beside them. Lucia looked between them. Confused by the change in routine, she reached for Stella, but Stella gently guided her hand toward Vittorio instead. Your papa wants to read to you tonight. Is that okay? Lucia hesitated, then nodded slowly. She didn't curl up against Vittorio the way she did with Stella, but she let him pick up the book, let him start reading in his deep voice that stumbled over the children's story words. Stella watched Lucia gradually relax, watched Vittorio shoulders loosen as his daughter didn't pull away. After 20 minutes, Lucia's eyes started to close. Her small hand, almost unconsciously, reached out and grabbed her father's sleeve. Vittorio froze, staring down at his daughter's hand like it was a miracle. His voice cracked on the next sentence, but he kept reading. When Lucia finally fell asleep, she was holding both of them. One small hand fisted in Stella's shirt, the other clutching Vittorio's sleeve. Neither of them moved. Afraid to break the fragile connection, Vittorio looked at Stella across his sleeping daughter, and she saw tears on his face for the first time. He mouthed 2 words, "Thank you." 3 weeks into the arrangement, Stella's life had transformed in ways she was still processing. She'd quit the diner and grocery store jobs, unable to maintain the exhausting schedule once Vittorio insisted on paying her $8,000 per week instead of 5. You look like you're going to collapse, he'd said matter-of-factly. I need you rested enough to actually help Lucia. Take the raise and quit the other jobs. Now she arrived at the mansion each night at 10, helped with Lucia's bedtime routine, and stayed until 2 in the morning. The extra money meant she was sleeping in actual chunks instead of stolen hours. It meant eating real meals. It meant the crushing weight of debt was finally, slowly, lifting. But more than the money, it was Lucia who kept her coming back. The little girl was blossoming in small, precious ways. She smiled more often, made eye contact, started bringing Stella things throughout the evening, small offerings of trust, a flower from the garden, a drawing she'd made. Once a bracelet that had belonged to her mother, pressing it into Stella's hand like a gift beyond price. Stella had tried to give it back, but Vittorio had shaken his head. If Lucia wants you to have it, keep it. She hasn't touched Giuliana's things in years. Tonight, Stella was teaching Lucia to bake cookies in the mansion's massive kitchen. The staff had been dismissed for the evening at Stella's request. She'd learned that Lucia responded better to normal activities, not the orchestrated perfection the household usually maintained. Flour dusted the marble countertops. Lucia had chocolate on her nose and a smile on her flour-covered face. She was following Stella's instructions carefully, measuring ingredients with intense concentration. Perfect. Now we mix it all together. Want to help? Stella held out the wooden spoon. Lucia nodded eagerly. She plunged her small hands into the bowl, mixing with more enthusiasm than technique. The motion sent a puff of flour into the air, coating both of them. Lucia looked up in surprise, then did something Stella had never seen before. She giggled. The sound was rusty, unpracticed, but unmistakably a child's laugh. Stella felt tears prick her eyes. She grabbed more flour and deliberately tossed a pinch at Lucia, who gasped in delight and retaliated. What's happening in here? Stella spun around to find Vittorio in the doorway, still in his suit from whatever meeting he'd attended. Marco stood behind him, trying to hide a smile. Lucia froze, flour-covered hands still raised, clearly expecting disapproval. The joy drained from her face, replaced by wariness. But Vittorio wasn't angry. He stared at his daughter with wonder, like he was seeing something impossible. Lucia, was that you laughing? Lucia looked down, shrinking into herself. Stella recognized the retreat, the way trauma could steal joy the moment someone acknowledged it. She made a split-second decision. She grabbed a handful of flour and threw it directly at Vittorio. It hit his expensive suit, leaving a white handprint across his chest. Marco's hand moved toward his weapon on instinct before he realized what had happened. Vittorio stood frozen, staring down at the flour on his clothes. The silence stretched. Stella's heart pounded. She'd just assaulted a Mafia boss with baking ingredients. This was how she died. Then Vittorio looked up, and his mouth curved into a smile. Not the small, sad smiles she'd seen before, but a real smile that transformed his entire face. He shrugged off his jacket, tossed it to Marco, and rolled up his sleeves. "You realize," he said, moving toward the counter, "this means war." He grabbed a handful of flour. Lucia's eyes went wide. Stella backed up, hands raised in surrender, but laughing. Vittorio threw the flour, hitting Stella square in the face. Lucia made a sound that might have been another laugh, then grabbed her own handful and threw it at her father. The kitchen descended into chaos. Flour flying, all three of them laughing. The household staff probably horrified at the mess being made. Marco watched from the doorway, shaking his head but smiling despite himself. When they finally called a truce, all three of them were covered in white powder. The kitchen looked like a disaster zone. Lucia was grinning, really grinning, her eyes bright with happiness. She reached out and took both Stella's hand and Vittorio's, pulling them close in a spontaneous hug. Vittorio's expression over Lucia's head was stunned, grateful. He mouthed to Stella, "Thank you." Later, after Lucia had been bathed and tucked into bed, Stella found herself in Vittorio's study at his request. He'd changed into clean clothes, but still had flour in his hair. He poured 2 glasses of wine and handed her one. I haven't heard her laugh in 5 years. His voice was rough with emotion. I'd forgotten what it sounded like. She's healing. Slowly, but she is. Stella sipped her wine. You're healing too. You're not watching from doorways anymore. You're participating. Because you pushed me to. Vittorio studied her over his glass. You challenged me. No one challenges me, Miss Murphy. Stella. And maybe that's your problem. Maybe you need someone who isn't afraid to tell you when you're wrong. Something shifted in the air between them. The study felt suddenly smaller, more intimate. Vittorio set down his glass and moved closer. You're not afraid of me, are you? Stella should be. She'd read enough articles, heard enough whispered conversations among the staff. She knew what Vittorio Moretti was capable of. But when she looked at him, she saw the father who'd thrown flour at his daughter. The man who cried when Lucia held his hand. The widower who understood loss the way she did. I'm terrified of you, she admitted. Just not for the reasons you think. What reasons? Before she could answer, her phone buzzed. She pulled it out, frowning at the unknown number. A text message with a photo attachment. She opened it without thinking. The photo showed her leaving the mansion 2 nights ago. The message below read, "Cute kid. Would be a shame if something happened to her. You should be more careful about the company you keep." Stella's blood went cold. Vittorio saw her expression change and took the phone from her hand. His face went blank as he read the message. The dangerous man she'd read about in articles suddenly visible beneath the surface. Marco! His voice cracked like a whip. Marco appeared instantly. Vittorio showed him the phone. Trace this number, find out who sent it, and increase security on the perimeter. Someone's been watching the house. On it, boss. Marco disappeared. Stella's hands were shaking. I don't understand. Who would threaten Lucia? Why involve me? Vittorio's jaw clenched. My world has enemies, Stella. People who want to hurt me by hurting the people I care about. They've noticed you. Noticed how much time you spend here. They think you're a vulnerability. Then I should leave. I should stop coming here. I can't put Lucia in danger. No. Vittorio grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. Leaving now makes it worse. It tells them the threat worked. That you're someone worth threatening. You're safer here, where I can protect you. You can't protect everyone. Your wife. Stella stopped, realizing too late what she'd said. My wife died because I couldn't protect her. Vittorio's voice was hollow. Because I was arrogant enough to think my power made my family untouchable. I won't make that mistake again. You're under my protection now, whether you want it or not. I'm not part of your family. I'm just the help. Is that what you think? Vittorio's hands tightened on her shoulders. You're the reason my daughter laughs again. The reason she's sleeping through the night. The reason I remember how to be a father instead of just a provider. You stopped being just the help the moment Lucia reached for you. His face was inches from hers. Stella could see gold flecks in his dark eyes, the scar on his jaw, the intensity of emotion he usually kept locked down. I can't lose you too, he said quietly. Do you understand? Not you too. The threat changed everything. Over the next 72 hours, security at the mansion tripled. Armed guards patrolled the grounds in shifts. New cameras appeared in every corner. Marco assigned 2 men specifically to shadow Stella whenever she left the property. Stella hated it, hated being watched, hated the constant reminder of danger, hated how her quiet life had become something from a crime thriller. But more than that, she hated how scared Lucia became when she sensed the tension in the house. The little girl had started sleeping through the night, but now the nightmares returned, worse than before. She'd wake up screaming silently, tears streaming down her face, reaching desperately for Stella like she was drowning. On the 3rd night after the threat, Stella was reading to Lucia when the little girl suddenly grabbed her arm. Her small hand pointed toward the window, her eyes wide with terror. Stella looked. She couldn't see anything in the darkness beyond the glass, but Lucia was trembling violently. Stella pulled her close, but the little girl wouldn't be comforted. She kept staring at the window, shaking her head frantically. "What did you see, sweetheart? What's wrong?" Lucia's mouth opened. She was trying to speak, straining to form words that hadn't come in 5 years. Her face turned red with effort, tears of frustration streaming down her cheeks. Vittorio appeared in the doorway. He'd been spending more time nearby since the threat, never far from his daughter. "What's happening?" "She saw something outside. She's trying to tell me, but—" Stella held Lucia tighter. "It's okay, baby. You don't have to talk. Just show me." Lucia pulled away and ran to her desk. She grabbed paper and crayons and drew frantically. Dark figures, multiple men, around the house. She drew them again and again, her small hands shaking. Vittorio went pale. He pulled out his phone and called Marco. "Run a perimeter check, now." Lucia saw something. Marco's voice came through the speaker. "Boss, we've got movement on the north side. At least 3 unknowns. They breached the outer perimeter. Lockdown protocol. Get every man we have on it." Vittorio ended the call and turned to Stella. "Take Lucia to the safe room. Marco will meet you there." "What's happening?" "Someone's testing our defenses, seeing how close they can get." His face was carved from stone, the dangerous man fully present now. "Go, now." Stella grabbed Lucia, who wrapped her legs around Stella's waist and buried her face in her neck. Stella ran into the hallway where Marco was already waiting. He led them through a series of corridors to a door hidden behind a bookshelf. Behind it, stairs descended to a reinforced room that looked like a bunker. "Stay here. Don't open this door for anyone except me or the boss. Understand?" Marco's gray eyes were hard. "There's water, supplies, communication equipment. You'll be safe." He left, sealing the door. Right behind him, Stella heard heavy locks engaging. She was alone with Lucia in a windowless room, the little girl clinging to her like she might disappear. Above them, Stella heard sounds, shouting, running feet, a sound that might have been gunfire, distant and muffled. Lucia whimpered against her shoulder. "It's okay. Your papa's got this. He won't let anyone hurt you." Stella kept her voice steady, even though her heart was racing. "We're safe down here. Nothing can get through that door." 17 minutes passed like hours. Stella sat on the floor with Lucia in her lap, rubbing her back, humming softly. The little girl was silent but trembling, her small body rigid with fear. Then the locks disengaged. Stella's breath caught. The door opened and Vittorio stepped through, and Stella nearly sobbed with relief. He had blood on his knuckles and his shirt, his face grim but focused. "It's over. They're gone." He crossed the room and knelt beside them. "Lucia, Piccola, look at me. You're safe. Papa's here." Lucia lifted her head. She stared at her father, then suddenly lunged for him. Vittorio caught her, surprise crossing his face as his daughter wrapped her arms around his neck and held on with desperate strength. "You kept us safe," Stella said softly. "She knows that." Vittorio's eyes met hers over Lucia's head. In them, Stella saw exhaustion and relief, and something darker. Rage at whoever had done this. Fear at how close danger had come. "They were Calabrese's family," he said quietly. "Antonio Calabrese's men. This was reconnaissance. They wanted to see how we'd respond, find weaknesses in our security." "Why? What do they want?" "Me. They've wanted me for years, but now they know about you, about how much you matter to Lucia, to me." His jaw clenched. "They'll use that. They'll come for you to hurt me." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. How much you matter to me. Stella's heart did something complicated in her chest. Then I leave, tonight. I disappear and they have no reason to come after Lucia. No. Vittorio stood, still holding his daughter. That's exactly what they want. They want me isolated, vulnerable, making decisions based on fear. I won't give them that satisfaction. So what do? We prepare. We make sure next time they come, we're ready. His eyes hardened. And we send a message they won't forget. 2 hours later, Lucia was finally sleeping in her bed. Stella sat beside her, unwilling to leave even though the immediate danger had passed. Vittorio stood at the window, staring out at the grounds where his men were still securing the perimeter. I need to know something, Stella said quietly. When you say you'll send a message, what does that mean? Vittorio didn't turn around. It means I'll make sure they understand the cost of threatening my family. By hurting them, killing them, by doing whatever is necessary to keep you and Lucia safe. Now he turned, and his expression was cold. Does that frighten you, knowing what I'm capable of? Yes. Stella held his gaze, but not for the reasons you think. I'm not afraid of you. I'm afraid of what this world will do to Lucia, what it's already done to her. She was born into this world. There's no escape from it. There could be, if you wanted it. Stella stood, careful not to wake Lucia. You can walk away, take Lucia somewhere safe, start over. You think it's that simple, that I can just leave? Vittorio's voice carried an edge of bitterness. I have responsibilities, people who depend on me, enemies who would hunt me to the ends of the earth if I showed weakness by running. I think you're scared. The words came out before Stella could stop them. Not of your enemies, of choosing a different life, of admitting that maybe this isn't what you want anymore. The silence that followed was dangerous. Vittorio crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping close enough that Stella had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? I see the way you look at Lucia when you think no one's watching, like you wish you could give her a normal childhood. Normal problems. A father who comes home from an office job, not from making people disappear. Stop. I see the way you look at me. Like I'm something you want but can't have. Like I'm a life you could have chosen if things had been different. I said stop. But his voice had lost its edge. His hand came up, fingertips barely touching her cheek. You're right, about all of it. But wanting something doesn't make it possible. Why not? Because men like me don't get happy endings, Stella. We get violence and death and the knowledge that everyone we love becomes a target. His thumb traced her cheekbone. I've already buried one woman I loved. I won't bury another. Then don't. Protect me instead. Teach me how to survive in your world. Let me choose this with my eyes open, instead of making decisions for me. You're asking me to put you in more danger, not less. I'm asking you to stop treating me like I'm fragile. I'm not Juliana. I'm not going to break. Stella covered his hand with hers. I'm here. I'm staying, whether you want me to or not. Vittorio stared at her like she was something precious and terrifying. Then he leaned down and pressed his forehead to hers, eyes closed. You're going to be the death of me, or the saving of you. The moment broke when Lucia stirred in her sleep, making a small sound. They both turned to her instantly, but she settled without waking. When Stella looked back, Vittorio had stepped away. Distance re-established. Marco will drive you home. You're not coming back until we've dealt with the Calabrese situation. Vittorio, that's not negotiable. His voice was firm. I won't risk you or Lucia again. You stay away until it's safe. Stella wanted to argue, but she saw the fear. Beneath his command, the terror of losing another person he cared about. She nodded slowly. But you call me, every day. So I know you and Lucia are okay. Deal. Stella lasted 4 days away from the mansion before everything went wrong. Vittorio called each morning like he'd promised. Brief updates that Lucia was safe, but struggling without her. She stopped speaking again, won't eat, just sits at her window, waiting for you to come back. His voice carried exhaustion and frustration in equal measure. On the 5th morning, the call didn't come. By noon, Stella was pacing her apartment, phone clutched in her hand. She tried calling back 6 times. Every call went to voicemail. She tried Marco's number. Nothing. The silence was worse than any threat. At 2:17 p.m., her door burst open. Two men in suits flooded in, guns drawn, badges flashing. Behind them, a man in his mid-40s with dirty blonde hair and exhausted eyes stepped forward. "Stella Murphy? I'm Detective Owen Price. You need to come with me, now." Stella's heart stopped. What happened? Is Lucia okay? Is the Torrio? They're alive. For now. But we have a situation. Price gestured sharply. "Cars downstairs, I'll explain on the way." The drive took 20 minutes through traffic that Price navigated with lights flashing. He explained rapidly, words clipping together with urgency. Antonio Calabrese escalated. He took Lucia from her school this morning at 9:47 a.m. 6 guards down, 3 critically injured. He's demanding a trade. You, for the girl. Says Moretti has 2 hours to deliver you to a warehouse at the docks, or Lucia dies. Stella felt the blood drain from her face. Why me? I'm nobody. You're the woman who looks like his dead wife. You're the person his daughter loves. Your leverage. Price's eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. Moretti refused the trade. He's mobilizing his entire organization to get her back another way. But Calabrese is smart. He knew Moretti would refuse. The whole point is to make him watch while someone else he loves gets taken away. Take me to the warehouse. What? You heard me. Take me there. Make the trade. Stella's voice was steady despite her shaking hands. Lucia's 7 years old. She's already lost her mother. She can't lose everything because I'm too scared to help. Price pulled over sharply. You understand what you're saying? Calabrese will torture you for information. Even if you don't know anything, he'll hurt you just to hurt Moretti. Then he'll kill you. There's no scenario where you walk away from this. Then don't let that scenario happen. You're police. You must have some kind of plan. We've been trying to take down the Calabrese and Moretti families for years. This is our chance to get them both while they tear each other apart. Price's expression was hard. I'm not supposed to care about one civilian or one kid. I'm supposed to let this play out. But you do care, or you wouldn't have come to get me. Stella leaned forward. You're a father. I can see the photos on your dashboard. 2 kids, maybe 9 and 12. You'd do anything to save them. So help me save Lucia. Something flickered in Price's eyes. Regret, maybe, or recognition of his own failures. If we do this, it's off the books. My department won't back it. If anything goes wrong, then it goes wrong. But at least I tried. Stella's jaw set. Make the call. Tell Calabrese I'm coming. The warehouse was exactly what Stella expected from crime movies. Abandoned, windows broken, rust and decay everywhere. Rain had started falling, cold and relentless. Price parked 2 blocks away. Moretti's men are already in position. He doesn't know you're coming, but he's got snipers on every roof. Teams ready to breach. The second Calabrese shows himself, this place becomes a war zone. Price handed her a small device. This is a tracker. It'll go under your skin, right here. He indicated a spot near her shoulder blade. Won't show up on a pat-down. We'll know exactly where you are. The injection burned. Stella barely felt it through her fear. Price gave her final instructions as they approached the warehouse. Go in through the front. Hands visible. Let them search you. When the shooting starts, hit the ground and stay down. Moretti's men won't risk hitting you, but Calabrese's might not care. And Lucia? Moretti will get her out first. That's his only priority. Price met her eyes. You're brave. Stupid, but brave. If you survive this, stay away from these families. This world destroys everyone it touches. Stella nodded and stepped out into the rain. The warehouse loomed ahead. She walked toward it with her hands raised, soaked within seconds. The front door hung open. Inside, harsh lights illuminated a mostly empty space. Crates stacked in corners, old machinery rusting against walls, and in the center, a man holding Lucia by her arm. Antonio Calabrese was in his 50s, wearing an expensive suit despite the surroundings. Cold eyes assessed Stella as she entered. Lucia's face was tear-streaked, a bruise forming on her cheek. When she saw Stella, she tried to lunge forward, but Calabrese's grip tightened. So you're the ghost. Calabrese's voice carried amusement. I see why he keeps you around. You really do look just like her. Must drive him insane every time he looks at you. Let her go. I'm here. That was the deal. The duel was Moretti delivers you. Where is he? Calabrese looked past her. Don't tell me he sent his prize alone. That's not very protective of him. Two men grabbed Stella from behind, searching her roughly. They found nothing but her phone, which they smashed. Then they zip-tied her hands and shoved her toward a chair. Calabrese walked Lucia to a small room off to the side, pushing her inside and locking the door. Stella could hear the little girl crying through the thin walls. Now we wait for more. Eddie to show up. Because he will. He can't help himself. Calabrese leaned against a crate, lighting a cigarette. You know what your problem is? You remind him that good things can be taken away. Every time he looks at you, he remembers losing his wife. Must be torture. You don't know anything about him. I know he's weak, soft. He's got too many emotions, and emotions in our business are liabilities. Calabrese blew smoke toward the ceiling. I'm going to enjoy watching his face when I kill you. Almost as much as I'll enjoy killing that brat afterward. Rage burned through Stella's fear. She's 7 years old. What kind of monster threatens a child? The kind who wins. Calabrese's smile was cruel. Her mother's death broke Moretti, made him weak, careful, afraid. Killing his daughter will finish the job. Then taking over his territory becomes easy. He'll destroy you for this. He'll try. The words barely left Calabrese's mouth when gunfire erupted outside. The warehouse's back wall exploded inward in 3 places simultaneously. Smoke grenades followed, filling the space with thick, gray clouds. Stella dropped from the chair, hitting the ground as bullets flew overhead. Shapes moved through the smoke. Calabrese's men returning fire, muzzle flashes bright in the haze. Stella crawled toward the room where Lucia was locked. A body fell near her. One of Calabrese's guards. She grabbed his gun with zip-tied hands, awkward but determined. Lucia! She screamed over the gunfire. Lucia, stay down! Someone grabbed her from behind. Stella swung the gun blindly, connected with something solid. The grip released. She made it to the door and kicked it hard. The lock splintered. She shoved inside and found Lucia huddled in the corner, hands over her ears, eyes squeezed shut. It's me. It's Stella. We're getting out of here. Stella positioned herself between Lucia and the door, gun raised in shaking hands. Then Vittorio was there. He appeared through the smoke like death itself, tactical gear replacing his usual suits, rifle in his hands. His eyes found Stella and Lucia, swept over them checking for injuries. Relief crossed his face for half a second, before hardening back to cold focus. Marco, I've got them. His voice cut through the chaos. North room. Marco appeared with 2 other men. They formed a protective circle around Stella and Lucia. Vittorio knelt in front of his daughter, hands gentle despite the violence surrounding them. Papa's here, Piccola. I've got you. Nothing's going to hurt you. He looked at Stella. Can you walk? Yes. Then stay behind me. Don't stop moving, no matter what you see. They moved as a unit through the smoke-filled warehouse. Bodies littered the ground. Calabrese's men eliminated with brutal efficiency. Stella kept her body between Lucia and the carnage, but the little girl saw anyway. Her eyes were wide and dark and far too knowing for 7 years old. They were almost to the exit when Calabrese appeared, bleeding from a shoulder wound, gun raised. You don't get to win, Moretti. You don't get to keep everything. He aimed at Stella. Vittorio moved faster, shoving her aside and returning fire in one smooth motion. Calabrese fell, but not before his shot went wide and caught one of Vittorio's men. Price and 2 officers rushed in from the front entrance, weapons drawn. Police, everyone on the ground. For a moment, violence hung balanced on a knife's edge. Then Vittorio lowered his weapon and raised his hands. His men followed suit. Calabrese's remaining guards did the same. The next 72 hours blurred together in police stations and hospital rooms. Stella gave her statement 4 times to different detectives, each one trying to find inconsistencies that would implicate Vittorio in something prosecutable. She told the truth about the kidnapping, about trading herself for Lucia, about Calabrese's threats. She said nothing about Vittorio's business operations because she genuinely knew nothing. Detective Price kept his promise. He corroborated her story, explained how he'd facilitated the exchange to save a child's life. The department wasn't happy, but they couldn't touch her for being a victim. Vittorio faced worse scrutiny, 3 days of interrogation, lawyers present for every second. But like every time before, nothing stuck. Calabrese's men refused to testify. The warehouse had been wiped clean of anything useful before police fully secured it, and witnesses to the actual kidnapping at Lucia's school were suddenly hard to find. Antonio Calabrese survived his wounds. He was arrested, charged with kidnapping, attempted murder, and a list of other crimes prosecutors had been trying to pin on him for years. His family began negotiating deals behind closed doors, desperate to distance themselves from Antonio's actions. Stella didn't see Vittorio or Lucia during those 3 days. She was released to her apartment with warnings from multiple detectives to stay away from the Moretti family. She promised nothing. On the 4th morning, Marco appeared at her door at 6 a.m. "Boss wants to see you. Lucia won't stop asking for you." His expression was unreadable. "You up for a drive?" Stella grabbed her jacket without answering. The mansion looked different in early morning light. Still impressive, still fortified, but somehow less threatening. Guards still patrolled, but they nodded to her as Marco led her inside, like she was expected, like she belonged. She found Lucia in her bedroom, curled up in her window seat, staring outside. The little girl looked smaller somehow, more fragile. The bruise on her cheek had faded to yellow-green. When she heard Stella enter, she turned slowly. Then she launched herself across the room. Stella caught her, dropping to her knees as Lucia wrapped around her like she'd never let go. The little girl was shaking, silent sobs racking her small body. Stella held her tight, rocking slightly, murmuring soft reassurances. "I'm here. I'm okay. You're safe. We're both safe." Lucia pulled back enough to look at Stella's face. Her mouth opened, working around words. Her face scrunched with effort and frustration. Then, in a voice hoarse from years of disuse, she whispered one word: "Stay." Stella's breath caught. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I'm staying, sweetheart. I promise I'm not going anywhere. Don't leave me." Each word was clearly an immense effort. "Please. Never. I swear to you, I will never leave you." Stella cupped Lucia's face gently. "You're stuck with me now." A sound from the doorway made them both look up. Vittorio stood there, and the expression on his face nearly broke Stella's heart. Wonder and grief and desperate hope all mixed together. He'd heard his daughter speak for the first time in 5 years. "Lucia." His voice cracked. "Piccola, you're talking." Lucia looked at her father, then at Stella, then back to Vittorio. "Papa." The word was soft but clear. "You came for me." Vittorio crossed the room in 3 strides and dropped to his knees beside them. "Always. I will always come for you. Nothing in this world could stop me." He gathered both Lucia and Stella into his arms, holding them like they might disappear. "I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I let them take you. I'm sorry for everything. Not your fault." Lucia's words were getting stronger, more confident. "Bad men. You saved me. You and Stella." They stayed like that for a long time, the 3 of them wrapped together, on Lucia's bedroom floor. Eventually, Lucia's exhaustion caught up with her. She fell asleep between them, one hand fisted in Stella's shirt, the other clutching her father's arm. Vittorio carefully lifted his daughter and placed her in bed. He and Stella stood on either side, watching her sleep peacefully for the first time in days. Then Vittorio gestured toward the door. Stella followed him to his study. He closed the door and turned to face her. "You shouldn't have done it. You shouldn't have traded yourself. I'd do it again. I know. That's what terrifies me." Vittorio moved to the window, staring out at his fortified grounds. The Calabrese family is finished. Antonio's brothers are negotiating surrender terms. They want peace. That's good, isn't it? They had one condition. They want you gone. Out of my life, out of the city, far enough away that I can't use you as a symbol of my victory over them. His hands clenched at his sides. "If you stay, they've sworn to never stop coming after you. Not this year, not in 5 years, not ever. You'll always be a target." Stella's chest tightened. "So you're sending me away." "Marco's already arranged everything. New identity, new city, new life. You'll be Michelle Grant, office manager in Seattle. Good job, clean background, enough money to be comfortable. You'll be safe. I don't want to be safe. I want to be here, with you and Lucia." Stella moved closer. "You can't make this decision for me." "Yes, I can. Because you'll choose to stay, and staying will get you killed. Vittorio finally turned to face her. I can't lose you, Stella. I can't watch another woman I love die because of who I am. Another woman you love. Stella stopped, those words sinking in. You love me? Of course I love you. His voice was rough with emotion. I've been in love with you since you threw flour at me in the kitchen, since you challenged me in my own study, since you walked into a warehouse knowing you'd probably die just to save my daughter. He took a shuddering breath. But love isn't enough. Not in my world. Love is what gets people killed. Then leave. Walk away from all of this. Take Lucia somewhere safe and start over. Choose us over your empire. You make it sound simple. It is simple. You're just scared. Stella closed the distance between them. You're terrified of choosing happiness because every time you've been happy before, it's been ripped away. So you push people away first. Control the loss before it controls you. Vittorio stared at her like she'd reached inside his chest and pulled out his heart. You're asking me to give up everything I've built. I'm asking you to build something better. With me, with Lucia. A life that doesn't involve looking over your shoulder. A life where your daughter doesn't have to be brave because she's surrounded by violence. They'll never stop hunting me. So we make them stop. We negotiate. We use your power to broker a real peace, not just a temporary truce. You said the Calabrese family wants peace. Give it to them. Give it to all your enemies. Make it clear that you're done. That Lucia is off limits. That your family is untouchable. By publicly claiming you as mine. Understanding dawned in Vittorio's eyes, making it known that you're under my protection permanently. Not as the help, not as Lucia's caretaker. As my wife. Stella's breath caught. Is that a proposal? It's a strategy. A way to keep you safe while signaling to every family that I'm serious about peace. But his eyes told a different story. There was strategy there, yes, but also something deeper. Though I'd be lying if I said that was the only reason I want it. What's the other reason? Vittorio cupped her face gently, thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized were falling. Because when I look at you, I don't see Giuliana's ghost anymore. I see the woman who saved my daughter, who makes me want to be better than I am, who walked into my life and refused to leave even when any sane person would have run. His forehead touched hers. I see my future if I'm brave enough to reach for it. Are you brave enough? For you? For Lucia? I'll try to be. The kiss was inevitable, soft at first, tentative, like they were both afraid to fully commit. Then deeper, years of grief and love. Loneliness and desperate hope pouring into it. Stella's hands fisted in his shirt. Vittorio held her like she was precious and breakable and essential all at once. A small sound made them break apart. Lucia stood in the doorway, sleepy-eyed and rumpled. She looked between them, and a slow smile spread across her face. Stella staying? Her voice was getting stronger with each use. Vittorio looked at Stella, the question in his eyes. She nodded. Yes, Piccola, Stella's staying. Forever, if she'll have us. Lucia ran forward and wrapped her arms around both of them. Family, she whispered. We're family now. 6 months later, Stella stood in the mansion's garden, watching Lucia blow out 8 candles on her birthday cake. The party was small, just the 3 of them and Marco. Lucia had requested it that way. Just us, she'd said clearly, just family. The little girl had blossomed in the months since her kidnapping. She spoke freely now, attended regular school, laughed constantly. She still had nightmares sometimes, but both Stella and Vittorio were there to calm them. The legal situation had stabilized. Vittorio had brokered genuine peace agreements with the remaining families, backed by the understanding that he was effectively retired from active operations. He still commanded respect, still held power, but he'd stepped back from the violence. Let younger men handle the dangerous work while he focused on legitimate businesses and his family. Stella ran the Moretti Foundation now, a charity supporting families affected by construction accidents. Daniel's legacy living on through helping others. The work gave her purpose beyond being Vittorio's partner and Lucia's mother. Mother. The word still felt surreal. The adoption had been finalized 3 months ago. Lucia had cried when the judge made it official. Happy tears while clutching both her parents' hands. She called Stella Mama Stella and Vittorio Papa, and the sound of it never failed to make Stella's heart clench. She and Vittorio still hadn't married, not legally. But they wore rings, shared a life, navigated parenthood together. The wedding felt less important than the commitment they'd already made. "What did you wish for?" Stella asked as Lucia finished blowing out her candles. Lucia grinned, gap-toothed from losing 2 teeth that month. "Can't tell or it won't come true." Later, after cake and presents and Marco's gift of a first aid kit for when you start getting into real trouble, Lucia whispered to Stella while Vittorio cleaned up, "I wished you and Papa would get married for real." Stella's breath caught. "Why for real? We're already a family." "Because Papa looks at you the way he looked at Mama in pictures, and you look at him the same way. But you're both still scared sometimes. I see it." Lucia's dark eyes were far too knowing. "A wedding would make it official, so everyone knows we belong together." Out of the mouths of 8-year-olds came devastating truth. Stella hugged her daughter close. "You're too smart for your own good." "I know." Lucia hugged back. "So will you get married?" "That's up to your papa too. He'll say yes, he's just waiting for you to be ready." That night, after Lucia was asleep, Stella found Vittorio in their bedroom. He was standing by the window, looking out at the grounds that no longer felt like a prison. She wrapped her arms around him from behind. "Lucia wished we'd get married, at her birthday." She felt him smile. "Did she?" "Apparently we're both still scared and a wedding would make it official." "Smart kid. She gets it from you." Vittorio turned in her arms, pulling her close. "Are you ready for official?" Stella thought about the past 6 months. The slow healing, the gradual trust, the family they'd built from broken pieces. She thought about Daniel and the life she'd lost, about Juliana and the ghosts that had brought them together, about second chances and brave choices. "Yes, I'm ready. Are you?" "I've been ready since you threw flour at me and made my daughter laugh." He kissed her forehead. "But I wanted you to be sure, to choose this life with your eyes open." "My eyes are open. I see exactly who you are, who we are together, and I choose it, all of it. Even the dangerous parts? Even knowing what my past means for our future? Especially those parts, because you've proven you'll do anything to protect us, and I'll do anything to protect you right back." Stella pulled back to look at him. "We're not perfect. Our story isn't a fairy tale, but it's ours, and that's enough." Vittorio kissed her then, deep and slow and full of promise. When they broke apart, he was smiling. Really smiling, the kind that transformed his entire face. "Marry me, Stella Murphy. Not for strategy or protection or appearance. Marry me because I love you. Because you saved my daughter and taught me how to be a father again. Because you look at me and see a man worth loving instead of a monster." Yes. The word came without hesitation. Yes to all of it. Through the open door, they could see into Lucia's room where she slept peacefully, nightmares finally banished. Their daughter, their family, their hard-won happiness built on grief and courage and the stubborn refusal to give up on each other. It wasn't perfect. Detective Price still kept tabs on them, suspicious but unable to prove wrongdoing. The Calabrese family maintained their truce, but the threat never fully disappeared. Vittoria's past cast long shadows that would never completely fade. But in this moment, wrapped in each other's arms, with their daughter sleeping safely nearby, it was enough. More than enough, it was everything. Stella had walked into that office building months ago, just trying to survive another night. She'd found a ghost, a broken family, and a dangerous man who needed saving as much as his daughter did. She'd found her way home.